Humiliation has a strange way of lingering, doesn't it? Like smoke after a fire, it stays in the air long after the heat has faded. You walk away, but the moment follows, replaying itself in the silence of your own mind. The laughter echoes, the glance, the pause. But what if that sting, that ache in your chest, isn't a wound at all, but an invitation? Not to crumble, but to awaken. Most run from humiliation as if it marks the edge of dignity. But to a certain kind of mind, a mind sharpened not by comfort, but by confrontation, humiliation is not an ending. It's the raw material of dominance, because to be humiliated is to be seen at your most exposed and yet remain standing. That, right there, is where the alchemy begins. You see, the powerful don't dodge disgrace. They absorb it, reforge it, transmute it into something no attacker can understand until it's too late. Because to those playing at deeper games, humiliation isn't a wound. It's a window into weakness, and not yours, theirs. Most people experience humiliation as collapse, a social death. But those bound by deeper rules don't collapse. They shift. They change form. When struck with ridicule, they don't react as expected. No panic, no protest, just stillness. Eyes unmoved, a silence so loud it makes the room question itself. And that silence, that's when everything changes. Because what humiliates one person empowers another. The same words, the same crowd, the same mocking tone. It all lands differently when you refuse to flinch. Instead of retreating, you offer stillness, laced with calculation. The world waits for emotion. You offer none. The world expects a collapse. You provide a mirror. In that mirror, the attacker sees themselves, not as witty or dominant, but exposed. And you, the supposed victim, become unreadable. That's the most dangerous kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to defend, because it knows the real currency isn't validation. It's control. Control of perception. Control of narrative. Control of frame. The average person believes humiliation lies in the insult, but the truth is colder than that. Humiliation only sticks if you accept the script, if you buy into the story written for you. But the moment you disrupt the rhythm, you're no longer a character in someone else's play. You become the director. You dictate the tone, the tempo, the ending. When someone attacks, they offer more than words. They offer an insight into their needs. Their performance is rarely about you. It's about their fear, their smallness, their need to prove. And you, by doing nothing at first, allow that desperation to hang in the air unanswered. And when you do speak, it's with surgical clarity. No rage, no defense. Just enough to shift the lens so that now the joke isn't about you. It's about their need to joke. And that shift is irreversible. Suddenly, the crowd isn't laughing at you. They're watching them closely, wondering why they needed to speak, why they tried so hard. And you, without raising your voice, have altered the entire landscape. Because real dominance doesn't come from silencing others. It comes from making them question the reason they spoke at all. And if the insult touches on truth, a flaw, a failure, that's even better. Because now you get to own it, completely. Not as a weakness, but as a scar you've made peace with. You name it calmly, as if it were a fact too old to hurt. And suddenly, it becomes a mark of survival, not shame. And more than that, it becomes proof. Proof that you cannot be broken by what is already yours. This kind of composure is terrifying to those who rely on spectacle. Because when you don't play along, when you don't beg for sympathy or lash out in anger, you rob them of the reaction they need. They came looking for your collapse. You gave them a mirror. Now they're the ones who look shaken. See, the Machiavellian mind doesn't just survive the blow. It turns the very stage into a weapon. And the crowd, once an accomplice to your downfall, becomes an audience to your ascension. Because they don't remember words, they remember presence, who looked centered, who looked like they'd seen this play before, and never once doubted the ending. There is an art to this reversal, and it begins with restraint. Not silence as surrender, but silence as suspense. Every second you remain unmoved is a second they lose control. The frame slips, the scene changes, and now, even if you say nothing else, you've already won, because they came to define you, and instead, they revealed themselves. And this is where most never venture. Into the quiet space after humiliation, where identity is rewritten, not by force, but by poise. Understand this: true power is not loud. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't flinch or overcorrect. It lets others misread it, misjudge it, even mock it. And then, at precisely the right moment, it speaks just enough truth to shake the room. This isn't about revenge. It's about redirection. The moment designed to erase you becomes the moment that defines you, not by denying what happened, but by using it. As leverage, as legacy, the attackers will try again. That's inevitable. But each attempt becomes a repetition of failure, a public admission that your presence bothers them more than they'd ever confess. And every time they fail to shake you, your silence becomes heavier, your presence becomes sharper, and their need to perform becomes their downfall. Eventually, even your enemies start to tread carefully, not out of respect, but out of uncertainty. They've seen what happens when you're cornered. You don't panic, you don't fight, you let the walls fall around them, and that uncertainty is far more powerful than any punchline. This is the core of psychological warfare, not to attack, but to reflect, to allow the energy aimed at you to fold in on itself, to let their hunger for dominance become their greatest tell. And then, with one sentence, quiet, clear, final, you frame the entire scene not as your humiliation, but as their exposure. People remember that, not the words, but the weight of what wasn't said. And in that space between insult and response, where most feel panic, you find your posture, you lower your voice, you raise your eyes, and you remind the world, not through force but through presence, that you are beyond reach, that their need to diminish you only proves how large you loom in their mind. Because real power doesn't retaliate, it reframes. And in doing so, it takes the moment meant to break you and uses it to ascend. They thought they could humiliate you. They didn't know they were setting the stage for your legend.